Welcome to the Urbanist Agenda. I am Jason from Not Just Bikes, and I'm joined today by Graham from Nebula. Welcome to the show, Graham.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So you and I spent a bunch of time together recently, in November anyway, traveling around Europe, and that was fun. That was really fun.
It was a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to get into a lot of it, but you expect it to be fun and a delight, but there are unexpected ways throughout that is like, oh, wow. Yeah, this was cooler than I had anticipated.
And what we are talking about, if you haven't heard, is I have a new Nebula show, travel show, public transit travel show on Nebula called Day Pass. And it's a show where I visit a different city each episode, travel around, see interesting things while also riding as much public transit as possible. And the way we filmed this show was that Graham came over to Europe and I met up with him. And we traveled around to these different cities and filmed it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. I want to talk about that experience and what it's like to make a travel show on a lower budget than usual, but it turned out incredibly well. But before we get there, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Graham Haerther. I am the VP of Creative Productions here at Nebula. My role on this project specifically, I was one of the producers here to kind of help.
Yeah.
Through kind of the development and inception. I know originally this was an idea between Wendover Productions and you, Jason. And so once the idea was sparked, it was kind of handed over to me and you to kind of, shepherd through and make it a reality. And so that was my role here specifically in that show or on this show. And yeah, it was a delight and a lot of fun.
Yeah, you were brought on as the producer of the show, which was great because I've never produced a show before. I've done lots of YouTube videos, but this is different, There's still something different there. But then we also decided that you would come along with me and be my camera operator, but also sidekick. There's some great times in the show when there's it says producer and it has the subtitles, and that's something that you were saying at the time.
Yeah, 100%. For a number of reasons, it felt right to have a producer on set, on location for this kind of pilot season.
Right.
I think throughout there were a number of times where oh, actually, I wonder if it should be this. And obviously we cut a lot of this out, but the research in between stops or in between cities of oh, we have a better understanding of what this is. So you get a little bit more of an idea and shaping than not that a camera operator isn't capable, but they didn't have the context. So.
Right. And I think that was the thing. Ultimately, we filmed 3 shows as pilot, 3 episodes that are going to air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first one's already out, actually, as of when this podcast releases. And the next one's coming next week, and then another one the week after that. And so, yeah, we were trying things out, see how the format works, see what doesn't. Film a lot more than we needed to film. So
yeah.
We could always decide what to do in editing. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. So you've done some other shows with Nebula as well, right?
I have
some other productions.
Yeah, I mean, a number of the Nebula originals. Some folks may recognize my name from the credits in Jetlag. I helped those folks out a lot behind the scenes, and I had been working with Sam for 10 years at this point. So help Brian from Real Engineering with a couple of his things here and there. So yeah, work with a fair number of creators, and you can't see it, but my wall has a number of posters of projects and all that kind of stuff. Day Pass, as soon as I get the print, will go up.
That's very cool. I'm going to need to get a copy of that too, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is something that Nebula does. Nebula, in case you're listening and you're not aware, you might be listening to this on Nebula early. And for that, thank you very much. If you want to hear the podcast early, you can sign up at nebula.tv/agenda for the Urbanist Agenda. But for those who don't know Nebula, it's a subscription streaming service. But what makes it different is that it's owned and operated by creators like myself. And so, it's not owned by venture capitalists, big tech, private equity, or anything like that. And so it's a lot of creators working together to just make really interesting things. And one of the great things about Nebula is that we've started making Nebula originals. It's been a few years now, right? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the earliest originals go back to the kind of foundation of the platform.
Right. But back then they were more like YouTube bonus videos, if you will.
Yes.
Not to downplay them too much, but they were kind of like YouTubers were making videos or putting them out on Nebula first, like I do. All of my videos go up on Nebula early before they go out to YouTube. And I've made some of those sort of Nebula Plus, we call them now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you do a video, but ultimately it's kind of similar to the YouTube video, but it's only available on Nebula. But then we've moved on to, I guess, really, it's just been a transition, really. It's not significantly different. It's just that the production quality has gone up. We've gotten better at this kind of thing. We've been able to put more money towards these Nebula originals, and they've gotten better over time.
That's exactly it. And the lessons learned from one to the next are kind of shared amongst the creator pool and are available. The lessons I've learned working with Brian or Sam or whoever is happy to help and apply those here with you. And it's been kind of what the core of the mission is to help service the creators and help, what are their passion projects and how can we help elevate those and help them achieve it.
Yeah, that's something I really, really love about Nebula, because it's not just, like a group of YouTubers who put stuff up behind a paywall or something like some people seem to think it is. It really is like creators helping one another and also providing financing and funds to do like bigger things. I couldn't have made this show, Day Pass, the way it was made, not even close, without Nebula. And so it's really cool. And like you said, you brought a lot of experience from other shows and originals that you've done. But that wasn't just you. It was lots of people came in with their input. And it's been really, really interesting. So yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's worth shouting out maybe some of those people behind the scenes because, beyond just myself and kind of helping, obviously I'm here on the podcast and speaking on behalf of an entire team, at Nebula. And I know Tyson and I talk a lot about this, and we've been working through the post-production team. We've been hopping on calls all the time. And, there's probably 24 people that have touched some part of this project throughout the process. So
yeah, it was amazing to see the credits that we're putting at the end of the season and just how many people were involved in it. And I love that. I mean, I love making my YouTube videos, but that's kind of me, mostly me. Maybe I'll have a writer, researcher. I'll use Nebula Studios for editing, but it's mostly me. Whereas this was like a group effort, right? It was a lot of people involved in it in a good way, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you systemize the creativity in a way that isn't detrimental?
Yeah, exactly. But it was great. It was really great to get that experience of all these different, very talented people, to be honest. And I think that's what I find really interesting about Nebula, because it is shaping into like a Netflix, but like, I don't know how to say it. It's like just with a lot more raw creativity, right? And a lot more like imagination, to be honest, and doing interesting things. I just can't imagine a show like Day Pass or even Jetlag, right? Like Jetlag has been very successful. It's not only Nebula, it's a Nebula early and then it's on YouTube, but a show like Jetlag is so entertaining. And I just cannot imagine anybody pitching that to any traditional studio and having them take it up.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know what? How about we just make it ourselves?
Exactly. It's really good. So let's talk a little bit about like how this show came to be. I don't know if you want to start with that or you want me to start there.
Yeah, how about you take it away?
Sure. So, I mean, within Nebula, we're always talking. We've got a Slack, but we also talk to one another. Different creators talk to one another. And there's been a lot of talk about these Nebula originals. There's been some really great ones, honestly. Really entertaining stuff that's been coming out on Nebula lately. And so we've wanted to improve that in 2025 and in 2026. We wanted to really bring more people in and create more variety of different originals using the creativity that we have from all of the creators at Nebula. And so I started talking to Sam from Wendover Productions and Jetlag, for what it's worth. And we were talking about, doing something together because we always knew there is a bit of an overlap between like the Jetlag audience and the Not Just Bikes audience. They're not exactly the same, but there's that kind of cities, travel.
It's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Venn diagram of overlap of like transit enthusiasts combined with competition enthusiasts and travel. And yeah.
Right. And so we started talking about, hey, let's figure out how to do some kind of original around this. And I had some ideas and Sam had some ideas. And we actually got together with the crew for Wendover and Jetlag. And we got on some calls together and said, like, what would a Not Just Bikes show look like? I really like Jetlag. I enjoy it. My wife absolutely loves it. She watches every episode. And I find it very entertaining. But the one thing that never worked for me personally was the competition side of things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not a very competitive person, which is probably why I've never been on Jetlag, actually.
Well, you had a cameo.
Yeah, I did have a cameo. Downey was on it in Taiwan, and I was a little bit envious of that one because I used to live in Taiwan, and I was like, oh, that would be so much fun. But I just don't think I'm competitive enough to do a Jetlag. And so, like, right off the bat, I'm like, I am not doing a competitive show here.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of brainstorming around like what that would be. What I really wanted to do was something travel related, because that's something I really enjoy is, traveling to different cities, seeing the way
Mm-hmm.
different people live and exploring the city basically. And that's kind of where a lot of this started. But the other thing I do, and this is just a thing I do, like when I go with a family or whatever to another city, I often get on public transit, especially like a tram line or something like that, right? Because you can look out the window and you can kind of get oriented and figure out your way through the city. And I find it just a fantastic way to explore the city. And that's kind of where a lot of this came from.
Yeah, it's almost a slight modification from Jason's normal adventures put into a show.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, with Not Just Bikes, I do sort of city visits. Sometimes I'll go to a city, I'll explore around, I'll have a list of places that I've researched and places that my audience may have said, hey, this is worth going to see, or this is a terrible place. They often, they love to say that. I go to a city and they're like, oh, you got to go to this neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why is that? It's like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like,
We
great.
want to watch you suffer.
Yes, so it is similar. And I think there's going to be some overlap with the Not Just Bikes audience for sure. But I also think that some people who like jet lag, mostly for the transit and the travel side of things, are going to appreciate it as well. So anyway, yeah, so this started with sort of brainstorming with the jet lag team and with the Wendover team. And we thought, you know what, there could be some legs here, right? This is something that we could do. We had given the show the tentative name of Jason Rides Everything.
Didn't know if you were going to say that or not, but yes, that was at least the working title.
Which I hated, but I think that was kind of like, let's do something a name that you hate so that we come up with something better.
Mm-hmm.
But, that got the basic idea across of what we were doing here.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that being on the to-do list of like, yeah, we really need to find a name for this for a while. And I think it was like only a few weeks before filming, we finally like, yes, this is what it is. Day Pass.
It was actually like, I don't even think it was 2 weeks before filming. I think it was days before filming.
Yeah.
And you came up with that name.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We were bouncing off of stuff, but you came up with that name, Day Pass. And I know as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, that's the name. Like we had been through a lot of different potential names, but yeah, that was the one that worked.
Yeah. It's one of those things of like, when you're naming something like this, you feel kind of this hopelessness of like, oh my God, I'm never going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the one.
And I think it really got it across. I'm glad that we came up with that name, thankfully, before we filmed. Because, yeah, that did encapsulate it. We would go to these places. We would buy a day pass, right? Like a 24-hour pass or whatever. And we would ride as much of the transit as we could using that day pass. Well, also seeing the city as well, because that was one thing that I was kind of a stickler on. I'm like, I don't just want this to be a show where I have like a challenge, where it's like, I got to get to every single station and like, I don't know, touch the wall or something and then run back to the train and that kind of thing. So I still wanted this to have an element of a little bit more of like an exploration as well, right?
Yeah, I think we ended up kind of framing this around, if you think about a number of travel shows, what do they base the travel motivation around? Anthony Bourdain was, travel with the lens of food.
That's the one that everybody brings up every single time that we're talking about travel shows. They're like, oh, Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the idea here is just like, well, what if it's the lens of public transit?
Right.
And what that looks like throughout the world.
Exactly. So you get to see the transit systems, you get to see what it's like to ride it, you get to see, the whole experience of being there on transit, but also then, of course, transit or riding transit because it's fun. I like riding public transit. I mean, that's a big part of it. I just like riding public transit. I find it enjoyable. But also, of course, the transit can then take us to all of these interesting places that we visit and see. And that was interesting, too, to see what we can see with public transit. In a lot of these cities, honestly, the transit is so good, you can see basically anything you'd ever want to see.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, as an American, the level of public transit in Europe is, light years ahead of what we have. And it was a very wonderful experience for me of like, wow, yeah, it's a whole nother way of life and a way to experience a city and just everything it can offer.
Yeah, there's some American cities that do that better than others.
Yeah.
New York and Chicago being the big ones people bring up, but also Washington, D.C. to a certain extent. But yeah, I was actually really impressed. I know Well, maybe we'll get to it, but I was particularly impressed with Nantes. I had never been there before. And yeah, considering how small the city is in terms of population, I was, really impressed with how easy it was to get around.
Yeah, I remember, again, since this is coming out at the same day, there's a time, I think we're on tram 3. We're kind of like going out into more of the suburbs. And you have this kind of monologue about like, wow, this is just a normal French city. And it's so great to see how well the transit system works. And, you see all these people on bikes and parents with kids. And, it's this walking accelerator. And it's so well timed and kind of placed that it almost feels scripted. But that really was kind of this like just off the cuff, your impression and thoughts of the city as you had them there.
Yeah, exactly. That was not scripted. That was just you and I were talking and they were like, we should probably just film this, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I think actually that happened a lot during the show where it was like, you and I are just talking and we're filming the whole time. I think, when we started out, you were turning off the camera a lot more often. And then I noticed like you were just leaving it on all the time. And I think that was probably the best approach because who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. At first I was like, I don't really know how long this battery's going to last, but we're going to see. And then I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, the battery's not an issue. And yeah, there's a lot of great stuff that we found a lot of the soul in the show and that kind of just like off the cuff nature of what we were experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it worked out so much better than I thought. I was going into this thinking that it was going to be fun and a good show, but I love the result. Honestly, I am so much happier with it than I thought I would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the production process a little bit. So we went through some of this brainstorming with Wendover and Jetlag and came up with a rough concept. And then we brought in you and Tyson and some of the other people at Nebula, and we started putting this together. We realized fairly early on that we're going to need a researcher too.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Gordon who helped us kind of like not only plan the routes and kind of what we wanted to do, but also just like, okay, we have an idea in our head, but like, can we actually do this?
Right.
And so, doing some kind of simulations with a number of spreadsheets and tabs open of like, okay, yeah, I think this will work, or maybe not. I don't know if we want to admit to this, but like, the exact plan of cities, what we originally had planned is not what we ended up filming. And that was part of the like research process of like, oh, actually, that isn't going to work the way we had thought it would.
Right, exactly. So we had shortlisted a bunch of cities. I had done some research. Other people had looked into things as well. I know my wife had looked into a few. She actually came up with Nantes for what it's worth. So
that's incredible.
It was like, this is one you got to do.
Yeah.
Which was really great and helpful. But yeah, definitely shout out to Gordon. He was great at researching this. So he is from Hong Kong, but living in Germany. And he's been to a bunch of different cities. And he's also like a fan of public transit. And so he was able to like really dig into it and know like what was going on, know how to look at the schedules and know how to like look at the map and think what's, and to help us find an optimal route through these cities. And yeah, like you said, we had a list of cities that we wanted to do. And once Gordon started looking through it, we're like, this is not going to work.
Yeah, that's not it, but we knew what to look for.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
And that was interesting as well. And yeah, so of course we went into this with a plan. However, it doesn't always go according to plan, right? Like once you get there on the ground.
Sure didn't.
In some cases it did. In some cases, actually, I would say in Nantes, a lot of it just kind of it was just working for a long time.
It was, yeah. We got really lucky. I mean, again, not that we didn't have good planning going into it, but like there was some of it of like, oh, all right, we're going to have to wait here forever for something to like line up or whatever. But like, I think our only big misstep is that we were moving too quickly and we ended up having to wait for that tiny ferry because they were eating lunch.
Yeah, it was quite funny. We didn't realize the ferry was closed for lunch.
Yeah.
But we also didn't expect to get there so early. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in the original plan, the time we left on that ferry was still the same. We just ended up waiting at that stop for, I don't know, like 45 minutes.
At least we got some sunshine.
Yes, it was a nice little break.
That was what we did luck out with, honestly. Like I would say, like, I don't even know if it was luck in Nantes or just they have good public transit and it just comes frequently and it just works really well, honestly. But what we were lucky with is the weather.
Yes, you were really concerned and I was too. November in Europe.
Yeah, it was dangerous filming a show outside in Europe in November.
Yeah.
That was risky.
But yeah, it was sunshine every day, although we did get some rain and snow in other cities.
Yeah, in Luxembourg in particular.
Yeah.
But that's the show coming out next week. Unless, of course, you're listening to this podcast late, and then it's probably out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess on the production process, we got involved. We started putting something together. Once it kind of clicked, then we're like, yeah, we're doing this show. This can work. This
Yep.
is something that we can actually do. And we move forward with it.
Let's pick some dates, book some travel, make it happen.
Wow. Once that happened, the green light happened from Nebula. Everybody involved understood, yeah, this actually has legs. Then it was time to execute on it. And I was actually very impressed with how well Nebula did with that, too, to be honest. Like, once we got the green light to do it, it all came together very quickly. And I imagine that's because there were people behind the scenes putting things together and making it work very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, one of the benefits, we can be very nimble. So once we have that alignment and agreement, it's, yeah, great, full steam ahead, and let's make it happen.
Yeah, and that is really nice. And I think that's just also, well, it's the fact that Nebula is a smaller company, but it's also like a lot of talented people, to be honest. And so once that small group of people decides, yes, we're going to do this and we're all on board, then things come together very quickly.
Yeah. Do you want to get into the actual filming?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that, I guess this will come out, but one of the things that I was pretty strict on this, I just didn't want the first episode to be the first one we filmed.
Yep.
So I was like, I don't want to be doing this for the first time in a city I've never been to. And that's the first episode, because if we don't start on a good foot, then it may not, well, not necessarily flop, but it's not going to be as successful as it could be.
Yeah, it's not your best foot forward.
Right, exactly. I think that's a better way to put it. We wanted to put our best foot forward. And so I had been to Luxembourg before. And so I was like, you know what, let's do Luxembourg first.
Yeah, and I think you even went on your own a couple weeks before just to like,
yeah,
all right, we've done the simulation. Let's do it in real life, low pressure, and see if it works. And I think we even made a few small adjustments based on that. And then, I flew over and met you in Luxembourg the day before. We had a lovely dinner. I forget who exactly recommended where we ate, but it was lovely.
It was my wife's friend, Chris, who was in the special thanks. That was the guy I asked you to put in the special thanks there at the end, who was very helpful, actually. I met up with him. He is from Ireland, but he's been living in Luxembourg for years. And it was really, really great to meet up with somebody who knows the city well and like has explored it himself. And so, I had been to Luxembourg before, but that was a long time ago. And I didn't necessarily, travel around to see everything either, right? So that was really nice to get that local perspective.
Yeah, and it's funny, you mentioned the travel. I think that is the thing that I enjoyed the most. My personality of like going on a vacation is like, I want to see as much as possible of this new place. And so this was a great excuse for me to come over and be like, all right, let's go, let's explore. In particular in Luxembourg, we saw a lot.
Yeah, we did see a lot, actually. And I think it's really interesting to see how the episodes have sort of shaken out, because this is ultimately a public transit travel show. But there are some times when you lean more on the public transit and sometimes where we lean more on the travel.
Yep.
And I think that was interesting to see how that worked, because, we really did travel all around Luxembourg.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was really cool. And not just the city.
Yeah. It's incredible to me. It still blows my mind that public transit is completely free in Luxembourg, like the entire country. I know it's not a big country, but still, it's the whole country.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it still has a significant cost. It's cool to see.
Yeah. That was really interesting. And it's such a beautiful city as well. Well, I know we mentioned this several times in the show.
We do, yeah.
And it also feels like it's scripted or something. But no, I'm just walking around going like, this place is just so beautiful.
It's so stereotypical, like picturesque Europe.
Yes.
I think I mentioned, this may not have been on camera, but like my first impression is like, I feel like I'm in a theme park.
Yeah.
This feels like the Europe side of a theme park.
That's exactly it. And I think as like people from North America, I'm from Canada, in case you're listening and don't know that, and of course you're American. I kind of feel like it's also like, the European stereotypes that we get in North America in particular.
Yes.
It looks like Luxembourg. Like those castles just look like what you think a European castle should look like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very cool.
Exactly. So, but yeah, it was a great day. And I think, I was certainly nervous going into day one of like, okay, here we go. Let's see if it's going to work. Hopefully we thought of everything. And I think we had most of everything we needed. There was a couple of like, oh, all right, we should probably have more snacks or water, et cetera. But like, I felt it generally worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I feel it did too. And I think a lot of that is the research that was done by Gordon and ourselves. we definitely looked into it a lot. We're like, okay, we're going here. Let's make sure that this works. And yeah, I think it went off very well. But what's always a little bit weird about it is that you're filming for the entire day. And we had hours and hours and hours of footage. And you did kind of get this thought like, what are we going to make out of this? Because there are 100 different ways you could cut this, right?
Yeah, it's almost an overwhelming problem of like,
yes,
I think something's here, but I actually don't know until we get into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know that we had a good day traveling around, and I know that it was enjoyable, but I just don't know the best way to sort of package that so that it's interesting, and also so that like our joy of traveling comes through in that as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we did a good job at the end product of having that come through. I think, if there is a season 2, there's probably some lessons learned of like, some small adjustments to make. But yeah, I am also delighted on how it came together.
So Luxembourg went well. We had a few glitches here and there, but it went pretty well. And then we took the high-speed train to Nantes.
Yeah.
And that was great, actually. So we took the high-speed train to Paris and then traveled through the Paris metro through rush hour. That was maybe not the best timing.
Yeah.
That was crowded.
It was. Well, that was, again, we didn't film this because, we had travel days in between, but the high-speed train through France, my mind was blown. Again, it wasn't part of the show, but we got up to like 300 kilometers an hour.
I did notice that a clip of the high-speed train did end up in the trailer, though, even though it's not in the show.
Oh, yes. I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah.
Yes, there is the Ouigo, because we took the Ouigo. I was impressed by that, actually, because so France has a fairly extensive high-speed rail network. I would say the best in Europe, and they had the TGVs, the TGV, that are famous. But they have these like lower cost rail carriers now, which is new. And I hadn't ever done that before. And we took that Ouigo, Ouigo, and it was really nice, actually.
Yeah.
It was great. Like, I was worried it was going to be like the Ryanair of train travel, right? Like, we'd be sitting on a hard plastic seat or something, like rammed in like sardines. But it was actually really enjoyable.
Yeah. That's really funny. Yeah. Yeah. I think we made it across from Luxembourg to Nantes in 3 hours?
It was something like that. I remember it just being so fast, considering the distance that we traveled. And almost like the longest part of it was the transfer in Paris. That is the part that's kind of annoying about the France high-speed rail network, is that a lot of the routes go through Paris, but they don't all leave from the same station.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll come in at Gare du Nord and have to travel on the metro to another station to continue on your way.
Yeah. Yeah. But we successfully managed and we got into Nantes. And
right on time.
That night we had dinner with Simon.
Yes. So yeah, that's also really interesting. So we actually ended up meeting up with somebody at each one of these locations and getting that local perspective to a certain extent.
We did.
Yeah. So the day before we met up with Simon, we had originally actually talked, and there were some ideas on this show of it being like a podcast on wheels where I bring somebody along with me and we talk, on the trains and stuff like that. And we had actually talked about like, who would we meet up with? How would this work? But one of the ideas we had was we'd meet up with Simon, who lives outside of Nantes. And he actually works for Nebula. He's a graphic designer he's done a bunch of graphic design for not just bikes and for the I Love the City channel that I tried for a while, and Day Pass as well.
Yeah, I think you even mentioned the artwork for this podcast, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was my favorite thing that Simon has done. He came up with the artwork for this podcast, The Urbanist Agenda. I love the artwork for this podcast.
Yeah.
That like yield triangle with the Illuminati eye in the center is hilarious. And the more you look at the logo, the more you see like there's a bicycle gear in there and there's a wheel and spokes and stuff. It's really good. Yeah. He's a fantastic graphic designer.
Yeah, I have so many great things to say about Simon, both from just him as a person as well as his, design. But yeah, it was great to meet up with him, have dinner kind of where he lived. And he was the one that told us, oh, well, if you're coming to Nantes, you have to go see the elephant.
Right.
And I remember you and I were like,
the elephant?
What's the elephant? Yeah. What is that? I'm so glad we did.
That was amazing. That worked out so well. Too bad we couldn't ride the elephant.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us film on board, but it was still good fun.
Yeah.
That whole thing and all of those crazy Jules Verne exhibits and that weird carousel. It's just wacky. And I think that's what made the show very interesting, is that I'm glad that we don't spend 100% of our time riding on transit and that we get out and we go see some interesting things as well, because it's not just about the transit, although I do love riding transit. It's also about like the transit can take you to interesting places like that.
100%. Yeah. And I think it's funny, as we were planning this, we didn't really have that explicitly planned of like, oh, we're going to go to this cool thing in each place. But I think by the time we got to Nans, we're like, oh, yeah, that's actually like, I think a really big part of this of like, let's go see all these unique things about these cities, the Elephant Nan.
Right.
I won't spoil the other cities, but we see these cool things, and it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's really it. It shows you how good public transit can take you around to all of these interesting things. And in many cases, public transit was the best way to get to these places as well. Like, there wasn't necessarily, a parking garage next to this, right? Like, it was great. It was really, really great. And we had no problems getting around to what we wanted to see. And it was a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else to say in Nantes other than it was a great time. And
I was impressed though. Like I really was. I didn't really know a lot about it. I had heard of the city before, but never considered going there. It's not a particularly touristy city. It's not a bad city. It's just, it's not particularly touristy. And so I think that was interesting too, to go somewhere that is a little more, I don't know, authentic? Like, what's the right word?
Yeah.
Just sort of real.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that it's really funny. Adam from Jet Like the Game says this a lot about when they're playing and going to these places, they end up in these towns and cities that are just not, they're kind of off the beaten path for tourists, and being able to experience, kind of the more true parts of that culture and that country are just really cool. And Nantes was exactly that for France.
Exactly. I've noticed when I'm watching Jet Lag, they do go to some random towns.
Yeah.
The thing that surprises me the most is some of these random towns they end up in. Like, they literally only end up there because of the game they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually really nice.
Yeah.
Like, some of them I'm looking at like, wow, I never would have guessed that this town of whatever, 2,000 people is nice. Like, really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the beauties of this type of show, right? It's, again, going back to if you were pitching this to a big studio or something like that, of like, well, if you're going to be doing a travel show in France, it has to be Paris. Or
you got to go to Paris, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then that's exactly it, right? I think there's no way I could pitch this to a major studio. Well, now that it exists, sure, maybe. But like before it existed, I could never pitch this to a major studio because I just don't think they'd get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Nebula is well set up for this, both because of the size and the level of creativity they're willing to bring on, but also we have an audience of people who like trains too.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yes. Yeah, I think in Nantes, I remember we were taking the tram train T2, not to be confused with any of the trams, and you were looking up the voltage statistics, and I think we left this cut in there like, I better look this up. Yes. I don't want to get train facts wrong on the internet.
It was exactly it, because I just launched into it just off the dome, right? Because I had read it, and I was like, "Uh-oh, wait a second! I need to double check this before I say it on camera."
Exactly,
because I know if I got train information wrong on Nebula, boy, would I hear about it.
Yeah, the Reddit threads would be quite long.
Oh my god, yeah. So anyway, big surprise there, to be honest. And again, I just cannot believe how well the public transit worked there. Like, we very rarely needed to wait very long. When we did need to wait, it's because we wanted to go do something weird.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the tram train or, the small ferry or something like that.
Like the small ferry, I don't know if we get it across in the show, but like we didn't have to take that. And if we wanted to go to the destination we were going to, we could have just taken the bus to that bridge that just went around. And we could have done that a lot faster, actually, than waiting for the small ferry. But that's no fun.
No.
You got to take the small ferry.
Yeah, of course. Well, and I think it was named, it's fresh in my mind because I just watched the episode again, the Jules Verne 2. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was called the Jules Verne 2.
Yeah, I was like, we have to take that.
Of course you got to take the Jules Verne 2 in the city where Jules Verne is from.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a lot of fun. And then we went on to Copenhagen, and I don't want to do too many spoilers here for that, because that one's coming out in a few weeks, at least from the time that this podcast is out. But I've been to Copenhagen a bunch of times. I think 4 or 5 times. I've been with the family a few times. I've been for business trips in the past. So like I felt like I knew Copenhagen pretty well. But one thing I realized, I had taken the metro and the train when I was in Copenhagen before, most of the time I'd bike, right? Like
Yep.
that's what Copenhagen's known
Mhm.
for. It's the cycling city. It's either Amsterdam or Copenhagen. That's what jumps to mind when you think about a cycling city.
Yeah, 100%. The amount of bikes just everywhere
Yeah.
was a sight to see.
Yeah, and we got to see it during rush hour with just a flood of bicycles going
Mhm.
by. And that was really, really interesting. Yeah, so I loved Copenhagen as well because we didn't ride any bikes while we were there. You know, it's not just bikes, right?
Exactly.
So that was actually highly entertaining as well to travel around Copenhagen and see some of the places I've been before, some of them I hadn't. And of course, the most exciting thing to me anyway was they had a new LRT line that had just opened.
Yeah, it was like only a few months before we got there.
Yeah, right? I think it was only just a couple of months. I think it was even it opened in September or October and we were there in November. So it was a very short period of time.
I remember, and I'm fairly certain we cut this for the show, but we ended up speaking with one of the locals on the LRT for a fair minute.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. We did. Yeah.
And she was talking about how it's new and how she appreciated it. She had a few concerns about like people getting used to like yielding to the LRT.
Right. The cars didn't crash into it or something.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was brand new. I even think there were other like train spotters there, like filming and like seeing the new
Yes,
thing.
there were.
Yeah.
There was like that one woman who was there at the end of the platform and she was like taking all these pictures and videos with her phone of the LRT coming in. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love
It was
that.
cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, people do actually love public transit. And I saw this in Toronto too, when the new LRT line there finally opened after it was very late, after 15 years, this Eglinton Crosstown, it's called. And I was just talking to Reese from RM Transit about it, and he was showing me some videos and stuff. But you can see in his videos, there's a ton of people who came out to see it. Like it was an event, right?
Yeah.
Like people came out, not even just on the launch day, but also just for like weeks afterwards. People just traveled out to see the new train and walk around the stations. And you see all these people with their cameras out. And I think there is an appreciation for public transit. I think people really do like it. And they like it when a new transit line comes to their city. It doesn't happen that often, right? Like transit lines take years and years. Hopefully not 15 years for an LRT, but you know, transit lines can take 5 years, 10 years to build. And so it's kind of a big deal. And I think this is one of these things that it's like, I don't know, sometimes people think like trains are only for nerdy people or autistic people or something, but I find that's not the case. Doing what I do, it's surprising how many people actually do love public transit. It's almost like one of these things where like, it's like they love public transit and they don't know that other people also love public transit so much.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, and again, you know, coming from my North American perspective, you know, if I had the choice of being able to hop on a train and not focusing on hours on the road or dealing with all that kind of other stuff, like, again, when we went from like Luxembourg to Nantes, I just worked on, you know, other things or just kind of looked out the window. It was a pleasure. It wasn't as exhausting or, you know, all these other things.
Right. Yeah, like I've done a lot of driving in my life. I've done driving commutes, driving in traffic. I do not enjoy that at all. But I've also like driven across North America a lot, actually. I've done the round trip 4 times. So that's 8 trips across all of North America. Like when I worked in California for some internships when I was in university, I drove there. So I drove from like Ontario, Canada to California, to the Bay Area, so that I would have a car while I was at my internship. And yeah, I've done my fair share of driving. And I just feel like I don't need to drive again. I just really like that.
Yeah.
Especially that high-speed train.
Yeah.
That we took in France. It was just so much nicer. Like if I had to drive that, it would have, you know, road trips are fun, but it just would not have been anywhere near as nice as that high-speed train was. And that was the cheap high-speed train.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And getting to experience that was a real treat for me. You know, you mentioned New York. I end up there a couple times in the year, and every time I'm there, I'm always like, oh my God, I can just ride the subway or whatever. I don't have to worry about a thing. Just walk on and
Right, exactly. I don't have to worry about traffic or paying attention or getting in a crash or having to find parking or any of that. I just walk out, walk into the metro station or whatever and just go. And I actually really love that. And you know, I mentioned it in the first episode. It's funny that I like public transit so much when I come from a town with terrible public transit. I remember taking public transit as a teenager before I had my driver's license, and it kind of sucked, right? Like the bus was scheduled to come every 45 minutes, and sometimes it just wouldn't.
Yep.
And I would wait another 45 minutes, and then 2 buses would come. And that sucked.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly in North America, that's a lot of people's opinion of public transit. They'll look and be like, well, I can drive there in 20 minutes or I can take the bus in an hour 15. What am I going to do?
Yep, exactly.
And I think that that's too bad because when you experience what it's like to have a really good transit system, it's actually freeing in a way, right? Like it's like less that you need to think about. Again, like you don't need to worry about driving or where you're going to park or if someone's going to scratch your car or like anything, right?
Exactly.
Like, when I owned a car, I would worry about it being parked outside at night. Like somebody might break in. And I did have people break into my car at various times. And then you have to deal with all that stuff. And it's nice to not have to think about that.
Yep. Yeah. Go walk to the station, hop on, and get where you need to go.
Just bring your day pass.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, yeah, it was very entertaining. The whole process of creating a Nebula original is great. I love Nebula. I always promote Nebula at every chance I get because I genuinely love it. I love the idea that you've got a bunch of creators who have come together to do stuff together because, there's other things too behind the scenes at Nebula, like the fact that Nebula Studios does my editing is fantastic, right? Because like I used to have my own editor, but I didn't make enough videos often enough to have an editor full time, right?
Yep.
So then I was using a part-time editor, but then he would get busy with other projects and I would be like, okay, I'm ready to like release my next video. And he's like, oh, well, I'm on a shoot for like the next 5 days, but I'll get to it when I get back, right? And it was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. But, with Nebula, the creators can come together and we can all share a team of editors and motion graphic designers and audio people and everything else. And it all works out really, really well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the beauty of that is we continue to build on it. And, again, using those lessons and using this talent pool that we've built, both internally and from creators, to continue to innovate and create shows like Day Pass is just it's a dream job for me. And it's such fun.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I think it's fantastic. The whole procedure of like going from a concept for a show to making it happen was just really great, to be honest. We had our ups and downs. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to make something that works, but in the end we did, and it worked out really well. And yeah, it was great. A fantastic process. So yeah, I love Nebula. I'm a big Nebula fan.
Well, there you go.
So I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about just before we finish off here. If there's anything you're working on you want to talk about or anything you want to promote or...
No, it's Day Pass. Day Pass has been, kind of my big thing recently, and I'm excited for everyone to see it. And so if you're hearing this on somewhere that's not Nebula, I'll say, nebula.tv/Day Pass. Go check it out. Yeah. And hopefully you stick around for all the other great content we have as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Graham. It was great to talk to you. And it was great to spend a week with you traveling around Europe and taking a lot of public transit and ultimately making a great show out of it.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for having me out and trusting me to help with your baby and your process here. It was a real treat.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye.
That's all we have on the agenda for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to it almost as much as we enjoyed making it. I really enjoy talking to other content creators about what they find interesting, and a lot of the people I have on this podcast I met since joining Nebula. Nebula is the subscription streaming service created by and for educational content creators and the people who love their content. Nebula has all sorts of educational content, from videos to podcasts to classes by your favorite creators, as well as Nebula Originals, which are high-budget productions. Honestly, Nebula is such a great platform, and I'm so happy for my content to be available there. If you use our special link, which is nebula.tv/agenda, you'll get a discount off an annual membership, which comes to only $30 a year, which I think is a fantastic deal. So check out Nebula at nebula.tv/agenda and see if there's something of interest to you. At the very least, you'll be able to hear every episode of the Urbanist Agenda a little bit earlier than everyone else, so you can get the inside scoop on what we're plotting and scheming. Thanks again for listening, and maybe next time you'll be listening on Nebula.